I want you to imagine this with me. It is early in the morning, the kind of quiet hour when the air is still cool and the world feels calm and unbothered. I am taking my usual walk through the neighborhood, passing familiar houses and well-worn sidewalks, when something in a nearby garden stops me cold. At first glance, it does not seem extraordinary, but the longer I look, the more unsettling it becomes. Two cucumber plants are growing just a few feet apart. They were planted on the same day. They came from the same packet of seeds. They are rooted in the same patch of soil, under the same sun, watered the same way, and yet they could not be more different. One of them has surged upward like a living green wall. Thick vines climb confidently, weighed down by firm, spiny cucumbers that look almost too heavy to be real. The leaves are deep emerald and glossy, stretching wide as if the plant is proudly showing off its strength. Right beside it, the second plant tells a very different story. Its vines sag toward the ground. The leaves are pale, yellowing at the edges, barely strong enough to hold the morning dew. It looks exhausted, as if every ounce of energy is being spent just to stay alive. Standing there, I feel that familiar question rise up inside me, the same question gardeners everywhere whisper to themselves. Is it the soil? Is it some hidden chemical? Or is it just luck? Friends of still growing seniors, what I am about to share with you today answers that question in a way that changed how I see gardening forever. Because what I witnessed was not a small improvement. It was not a slight boost or a modest edge. This was explosive growth, the kind of growth so fast and dramatic that one silver-haired gardener I know had to hammer double stakes into the ground just to keep his cucumber vines from collapsing under the weight of their own harvest. This kind of transformation does not happen quietly. It looks like a time-lapse video playing in real life, leaves expanding overnight, vines stretching by inches instead of millimeters, fruit appearing faster than the plant seems capable of supporting. And here is the strange part. You will not find the reason for this growth sitting on a shelf at a big garden center. You will not see it advertised on television with bright labels and expensive promises. No glossy bottle, no miracle powder. The reason is simple. The fertilizer industry, worth more than $200 billion, cannot sell something that is alive. Real living biology does not sit quietly in a warehouse for months at a time. It ferments, it bubbles, it changes, it breathes. And that makes it impossible to package, store, and market the way chemicals are sold. So instead of going to the store, I went somewhere else. I went back to the kitchen, back to the pantry, back to a living tonic gardeners trusted long before modern chemicals ever existed. And here is the surprising truth. You probably already have it sitting quietly in your home. It is active dry yeast. Yes, the very same yeast that helps bread rise soft and light on a Sunday morning. But in the garden, yeast becomes something entirely different. It is not just a nutrient source. It is a biological engine, a living force that wakes up tired soil and powers plants from the roots upward. When I pour a yeast solution around my vegetables, I am not simply feeding the plant. I am releasing billions of living fungal cells into the soil, a microscopic workforce clocking in all at once. And what happens next is nothing short of remarkable. Scientists have identified a process called rhizophagy. It turns out plant roots are not passive drinkers of water, as we once believed. They are active, intentional, and surprisingly aggressive. Plant roots actually pull live yeast cells inside themselves. Once inside, Those cells are broken down into proteins, vitamins, and minerals. It is as if the plant switches from sipping thin broth to enjoying a full, nourishing meal. But that is only the beginning. Yeast cells also release powerful signal molecules known as auxins and cytokinins. In the plant world, these are growth instructions. They tell roots to branch more, grow deeper, and thicken. The underground network expands, allowing the plant to reach farther and pull in water and minerals far more efficiently. Deeper roots mean stronger plants. Stronger plants mean heavier harvests, and heavier harvests are what every gardener dreams of. There is another benefit that does not get nearly enough attention: protection. As yeast colonizes the soil around plant roots, it takes up space that harmful organisms would otherwise occupy. It crowds out pathogens responsible for root rot, wilting, and fungal disease. It acts like a living shield, forming a natural immune system around your plants. On the surface, it may look like nothing is happening, but beneath your feet, an entire workforce is spreading, multiplying, feeding your plants, and defending them at the same time. This is not just plant nutrition. This is plant empowerment, a living partnership between the soil and the gardener. And once I understood that, I knew I needed to make this tonic myself. So I stepped into my kitchen, where some of the most powerful gardening solutions have always been created. The process could not be simpler. All I needed was a clean container that could hold at least 1 liter. Into that container, I added 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast. And here is something important to know. If the yeast packet is past its expiration date, do not panic. These organisms are far more resilient than the label suggests. They have been waiting patiently for warmth, moisture, and purpose. And when you give them that, they come alive. This is not a trick. This is not folklore. It is biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. And when you bring that life back into your soil, your garden responds in ways that feel almost magical, but are grounded in real living science. That is how a tired plant becomes vigorous. That is how a struggling garden becomes abundant. And that is how, even after many years, a gardener still holds the power to change the world beneath their feet. After the yeast is resting in the jar, I move to the step that truly brings it to life. I measure out 2 tablespoons of ordinary white sugar and let it fall into the cloudy water. This part is often misunderstood, so I want to slow down here. That sugar is not meant for the plant. It never feeds a leaf or a root directly. The sugar is a signal flare. It is energy for the yeast, the ignition switch that tells those microscopic organisms conditions are safe, warm, and ready for work. Without sugar, yeast waits. With sugar, it wakes. Next, I add 1 full liter of warm water, and I pay close attention to how it feels. I do not guess. I test it with my hand. The temperature should remind you of bath water, comforting and gentle, not hot, not cool, just right. Heat that is too strong will kill the yeast outright. Cold water sends them back into dormancy. This precise warmth is an invitation, a quiet message that says it is time to stretch, multiply, and begin. I stir slowly until every grain of sugar disappears. As the spoon moves, the liquid changes character. It turns opaque, creamy, almost alive. That soft beige color is my first confirmation that the process has begun. Then comes the moment many people overlook. I cover the jar loosely, never tightly. Fermentation is not silent. It breathes. As yeast becomes active, it releases carbon dioxide. If that gas is trapped, pressure builds. Enough pressure can shatter glass or pop lids with surprising force. A loose cover gives the mixture freedom to breathe. I leave the jar on the kitchen counter out of direct sunlight, and I let time do the work. 2 hours will wake the yeast, but 12 hours transforms them. When I want the kind of growth that makes neighbors stop and stare, I let the jar rest overnight. I let those organisms strengthen, multiply, and organize. By morning, the evidence is unmistakable. A thick foam blankets the surface, rich and creamy, like the crown on a freshly poured draft beer. That foam is not decoration. It is proof of life, proof that billions of tiny workers are awake, active, and preparing to serve the soil. This is not chemistry. This is not a product. This is a living system. And yet, even now, I am careful. What sits in that jar is powerful, too powerful to use as it is. So I take the next step, one that separates successful gardeners from disappointed ones. I dilute. I fill a bucket with 5 gallons of water and let it rest until it reaches room temperature. Cold water shocks yeast just as surely as heat kills it. Sudden temperature changes weaken their effectiveness before they ever touch the soil. Once the water is ready, I pour in 1 liter of my activated mixture. As it disperses, something beautiful happens. Strength becomes balance. Power becomes precision. The solution is now alive but gentle, active but controlled. I stir thoroughly, making sure every part of the bucket carries life. When I apply it, I work close to the soil. About 1 cup per plant is enough. Underground, the yeast spreads quietly, feeding roots, strengthening systems, and improving uptake without fanfare. Sometimes I use the same diluted mixture as a light mist on the leaves. The yeast forms an invisible layer that helps defend against mold, rot, and leaf diseases. It does not suffocate the plant. It shields it. I never rush this process. Once every 7 to 14 days is plenty. These organisms need time to settle, interact, and build relationships within the soil. Overuse does not speed things up. It interrupts them. I also respect the sun. Early morning or late evening only. Midday heat, combined with moisture, can damage leaves no matter how good the solution is. Timing, like temperature, matters. When treated with patience and respect, this mixture rewards the garden in ways synthetic fertilizers never can. Growth becomes steadier. Leaves thicken, roots deepen. Plants stop struggling and start performing. And for most gardeners, this would already feel like a miracle. But I have learned something over the years. There is always another layer. There are 3 simple additions, things almost everyone already has at home, that can elevate this living tonic from impressive to extraordinary. Quiet tricks, old wisdom, the kind that never makes it onto a label. And that is where the story continues. There is a point where this mixture stops being simply helpful and becomes something far more powerful. That moment comes when I add wood ash. Just 1 or 2 cups from a clean fireplace, always dry, never damp. In that small amount lives potassium, the mineral that governs movement inside a plant. Potassium helps roots pull water efficiently, strengthens stems, and builds fruit that is firm, heavy, and full of flavor. It is the difference between a tomato that only looks ripe and one that truly tastes like summer. Next, I add a single tablespoon of Epsom salt. Inside those crystals is magnesium, the very core of chlorophyll. Without it, leaves pale and weaken. With it, they turn deep green and confident, ready to capture sunlight and turn it into energy. I have watched tired plants regain color and struggling gardens regain momentum almost overnight. Then comes the quietest ingredient of all, crushed eggshell powder. 2 tablespoons, finely ground. Eggshells provide calcium, the mineral that strengthens plant cell walls and prevents fragile growth. What makes this mixture special is that the gentle acidity from fermentation helps break those shells down quickly, releasing calcium right when plants need it most. For tomatoes, this can prevent blossom end rot, that heartbreaking disease that ruins fruit just as it begins to ripen. With calcium arriving on time, the harvest stays whole. When these 3 additions come together, they do not just increase growth, they change its quality. The garden moves from surviving to thriving, producing fruit with weight, sweetness, and staying power. This wisdom is not new. Farmers across the world have relied on fermentation for centuries, from Korean natural farming to old European cottage gardens. Even in times of scarcity, gardeners understood a simple truth. If you want life from the soil, you must return life to it. For years, we forgot that. We fed soil with chemicals instead of biology, and the cost has become clear. Weaker soil, unpredictable harvests, and dependence on short-term fixes. Choosing a living tonic is not magic. It is a decision to work with nature instead of against it. And the results speak clearly. Trials have shown yeast-treated crops producing 20 to 30% higher yields, with sugar content rising dramatically in fruits and roots. Gardeners report vines growing taller, fruit growing larger, and plants growing stronger in a matter of weeks. But you do not need studies to believe it. Try it yourself. Treat 1 row of plants and leave another untreated. Give them the same care, the same sun, the same patience. Then watch. The garden will answer you. And as I tend my soil, I am reminded that growth is not reserved for the young. Like yeast, even when something seems dormant, all it needs is warmth, care, and the right environment to rise again. So, as the next season approaches, I ask myself the same question I offer to you. What will you feed your soil? Choose life, and life will answer back.